Welcome back to QG Connect. And as you all know, this is an ongoing interview series where we interview industry leaders and experts on their views around data governance. And as usual, I'm your host, Bharat Shari. And I'm really excited to talk to Tony Mazzarella today, who is the Director of Data Governance at Voya Financial. And welcome to QG Connect, Tony.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Yeah, I think you bring a really unique background, both in your current role at Voya and some other areas we'll be getting to later on. But maybe to help us get started, Tony, I was wondering whether you could talk us through your professional journey so far and maybe
Sure.
spend some time talking about your current role.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a long journey getting to where we are, right? No one envisions a career in data, at least, not when you're a kid. You want to be something cool like a fireman or a policeman or doctor, right? No one's like, I want to be a data leader or, a data quality analyst. I think, by and large, everyone in our line of work has an interesting journey. Mine started actually in family business in the video and film industry. Very, very young. When in my early teen years, got to work in the family business, and a lot. So technology and data have always been a part of our life, right? It was, even in the analog world back then, we still had to have databases to track footage and time code and all that kind of stuff. And so that's really where I cut my teeth, and I'd always been fascinated by this thing that I didn't even really know what it was, right? But I enjoyed doing that kind of work. And as my career progressed, and I transitioned into more of the interactive media, becoming a developer. I was never a very good developer, but I understood the technology, understood what we were after. I could visualize solutions, and I had strong soft skills. So that kind of advanced my career in the software development space and the digital marketing agency side of the world. And that defined a large chunk of my career in IT and digital early on. So about, I would say, a little over 10 years ago or so, I was working in an open source project that DAMA International actually happened to be leveraging for a website that they were building, and I was a consultant with them. And so they invited me out to Enterprise Data World, and that was really my first exposure to data management. Right? I got to go to the board meeting and do the work, but they also let me loose to kind of attend some sessions, and I realized that, wow, there are all these people at scale solving all the problems I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis as a developer and solution architect in this nonprofit constituent relationship management space. And wow, there's this whole body of knowledge, right? So I was, it was really a life-changing moment, not only to be exposed to, wow, there's a significant amount of knowledge and history that can solve a lot of these challenges that I'm facing, but I also found my people, right? I found a group of really smart people that were willing to take the time to teach me all this. And so, fast forward a couple years, when I was looking to make a change. I was looking to be more focused on data and to do work in larger organizations. It was, I very much had a mindset that I wanted to get into the data management side of things. So started out, where I was comfortable in IT, doing data analytics and digital capabilities. And then, and within that, I established a domain, a digital domain, got into data governance, and really fell in love with the challenges there, the reliance on the soft skills and the need to partner and collaborate with other folks, which I was not only good at, but really enjoyed doing. So when a couple years later, when the opportunity presented itself to establish an enterprise data governance program here at Voya, I didn't even hesitate. Right, that was the kind of challenge I was looking for. It took me out of my comfort zone, out of that. I was still sort of holding on the rail of IT because that was where I was comfortable, and this kind of forced me to to let go of that crutch, and that's where I am today, and it's loving every second of it.
Now, I think that that the experience that you mentioned, where you're coming from like a developer background and someone from really that hands-on roles, I feel like that must really be helping you in your current role as where you're sort of managing teams or managing, a team of data engineers, data developers. So I'd love to dig into that, Tony. But maybe before we sort of get into the data world, I was wondering
Sure.
whether to take a step back and talk about what you like to do in your off time when you're not maybe focusing on your day to day at Voya, or maybe when you're not doing your other role at DAMA.
I don't have too much free time, bro. I have 5 kids, and they take up a lot of my time and energy outside of work. But I was a musician in a past life. I love music. I'm passionate about that. It's my escape. I love spending time with my family, doing things outdoors, going on vacations. I'm a diehard Boston Red Sox fan. Love playing fantasy football. I think mostly because that's a data thing. But beyond that, I'm pretty busy. I mean, data is a big part of my life, not only in my day job, but my involvement in the community. Working with DAMA, I volunteered there for several years, doing things like this, working with you folks, as well as decided to go back to graduate school, studying at UALR and information quality. So a majority of my life is data, and the rest is really the family with some little things sprinkled in there for fun. So hopefully that'll start to change in the next couple of years as I get through school. But right now it's burning the candle at both ends.
Now, I would say all ends, because all the things you mentioned, each of them by themselves take up a lot of time. And I wanted to quickly say, I was at Fenway Park a few years back, attending a Red Sox game. Really loved my experience. I think that was my first time experiencing a baseball game. So loved every minute of it.
That's my favorite place to be. I'm actually going there tomorrow.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a great one. You talked about DAMA, Tony. I was wondering whether we could spend some time there. So could you maybe talk us through what your role is at DAMA?
Yeah, so right now I'm the past president of DAMA New England, and I've kind of scaled back my involvement because of all those things we just discussed, with the school and everything else. But also, I had been heavily involved for the better part of a decade, and I'm a firm believer that for organizations to survive and thrive, you need new ideas. You need to change leadership every now and then. So great team doing great things there in the New England level, as well as at the international level and around the world. In the past, I had also been a member of the International Board of Directors and served as the chairman of the President's Council, which is all of the hundreds of chapters spread all over the world. All the presidents come together once a month to discuss what's going on in the data world and what's going on in our local chapters and communities. And so it's been a fantastic experience. And I once things free up, I'm very eager to get back in and be contributing back more into that community.
Great to hear that. I think one theme that I've been hearing from a lot of leaders is around data literacy. So I was wondering whether you could talk about how critical data literacy is for data governance initiatives, let's say, to succeed. Maybe picking any examples you could think of either at Voya or from your previous experiences at DAMA.
So data literacy is really important. I don't know that it's, I don't know how important it is specific to data governance. I look at it as really part of data governance, right? Because I view data literacy as the ability to read, understand, and use data, right? I know there's a lot of definitions, a lot of different perspectives on there. So, there's no doubt that the level of literacy in an organization has a direct correlation to, becoming a successful data-centric organization. And I think the role data governance plays that is inherent to that success is is helped along by as literacy improves in the organization. So I tend to look at more of as data literacy is more of a role of data governance. It's something that the data governance not just data governance, but data governance should be a key stakeholder, a key driver of data literacy initiatives in an organization, and however that scales.
I mean, I was curious also to get your thoughts on maybe again picking the example of Voya in terms of where you think Voya is in terms of either their data literacy or their data governance sort of maturity level, tying it back to your previous point around data literacy maybe being a part of data governance. So I was wondering whether you could share your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to weigh in because there's not a whole lot of baselines out there for a lot of this stuff. I think from where I'm sitting in general, we manage our data very well. And there are pockets of excellence across the organization for, data and how we manage data governance, data quality. I view my role as, bringing all those people together, bringing all those best practices together, establishing a consistent framework where we can manage data with, in a consistent way with an intentionality, with that enterprise view of the data and the value that we get out of it. So, in that latter sense, or in the more strategic sense where, we have a domain view of the organization and we have all of the policies and controls fully implemented and executed. If that's the end state of maturity, we're not quite there yet. We have a lot of good people doing the right things, but we're, like many organizations, going through the process of bringing this all together, and data literacy is a big component of that. And that's a pretty long journey that you have to undertake from when you're talking about data literacy, because I don't look at it as this thing that's contained to data professionals, right? Everyone in an organization touches data, has some relationship with data, and the trick in data literacy is how do you develop a curriculum and a program that is aligned to the roles in your organization and the relationship those roles have with data. And so you got to start somewhere, and it makes sense to start within your strategic objectives as it relates to data and the folks that support that, and then scale up from there. So I think we have great data literacy across a lot of functions of our team, but like most organizations, I think the world's changing fast around us. We have a lot of key business drivers that are making us more and more dependent upon high quality data, the interoperability of the data, ease of access to the data, and we're just starting to get to the place where we're looking at how do our operations and business functions, what role do we play, and how do we tie that all together strategically. So I very much consider the literacy component to be part of our data governance roadmap, versus something that we're relying on to be successful in data governance.
Yeah, I really love that point. I think it's like you pointed out, it's a journey. So you can't say that you're completely done at any point, because there's always something that you would want your stakeholders across your org, like you mentioned, to be aware of in terms of what, let's say, what you mean when you say customer, or what you say when you mean product, things like that. I was also, shifting gears a little bit, Tony, I was curious to get your thoughts on maybe what sort of frameworks or practices have you seen like work at organizations like Voya or even outside of it? And maybe we could keep it specific to like the industry that Voya operates in, which is financial services. So I was wondering if you could share your thoughts.
So I think specifically in the financial services space, in general, we're probably a bit farther along than some other industries. Just most of us these days consider ourselves to be data organizations that do financial stuff, right? It's all we have, what we're managing, right, is information about money, right? So data management and is core to our business, and we're heavily dependent upon data quality. So in general, there's some great organizations like the Enterprise Data Management Council that put out the DCAM, and that's very industry specific to as far as a model for and a framework for data management. It's tough to say, like, in broad strokes, this is what works, right? Some organizations making it very formal and bureaucratic and having lots of dedicated roles and stewardship and clearly defined, that works for some organizations, right? That doesn't work for us at Voya, because we're a flatter, smaller organization that tries to be lean and mean, right? So it's really, I think the key to success is understanding your organization, understanding what you have to change and how you're going to change it, and then any of the tools that are out there, any of the frameworks, pick what's best for you, and because you're gonna have to modify it anyway, you're gonna have to make it your own in order to be successful. So I maybe this is a non-answer, and hopefully it's not. But I mean, I don't know that there are standard practices out there that from a functional perspective are going to make you more successful. It really comes down to the organizational alignment, having the people with the right skills to influence the change in your organization, really focusing in and honing in on the organizational change management piece, managing those stakeholders, overcoming resistance, celebrating your victories, and having the resilience to bounce back when you get knocked down and something doesn't quite work right? This is, like you said before, this is a journey, this is a grind, and there is absolutely no magic wand out there that I've found anywhere. But there are a whole lot of great ideas that you gotta go out there and make your own.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I feel like that people aspect that you mentioned, where you're getting buy-in, you're celebrating those small successes, building momentum. I feel like that is an underrated aspect for any sort of initiatives or any sort of practices you're trying to implement, even more so than maybe even the technology piece or the process piece. Because again, like the soft skills that you mentioned that have really sort of helped you in your current role, I feel like that's something that typically sort of isn't talked about as much, but it's probably as important or even more important than some of those other aspects.
100%.
So yeah, my next question would be, what kind of learning tools have you seen that have worked well for most organizations, maybe even in the case of Voya?
Yeah, I've had some conversations around this specifically. It's and do we bring in external folks to start doing the training sessions, or do we create our own homegrown solutions? And I know a lot of my peers have built academies, centers of excellence, things that that have different paths that you can take different types of workers through to develop those skills, to improve the literacy, to be able to do that work. I think that I love that approach, right? I'm a big proponent of this being collaborative. Everybody's there to learn. This is not any one of us that has a certain level of expertise out there preaching what needs to be done, right? We should all be learning from each other. We should all be collaborating. We should all be coming together with our own stories and experiences to find out the best solution with that foundational knowledge. And I think that foundational knowledge piece is key. So I think it's a combination of having a learning strategy, right? And whether or not you're using online trainings, or you're leveraging a SharePoint knowledge base, or some other kind of knowledge base, whether it's you have an open channel in Teams or Slack or whatever your communications tool is. I think it's more about fostering a culture of learning and providing whatever those resources are. And there are tons of them out there. There are plenty of people in the community, like yourselves, doing great work in this area, trying to raise that level of education and awareness around data management, data quality. Um, so I think that's the trick. Formal training, absolutely great. Your organization has an LMS, build out some data curriculum in there. Create a mandatory training for all employees that just introduces some high-level concepts of what data governance, data management are, and why it's important to the organization, and their role, right? Anecdotally, I mean, someone who uh, processes invoices, right? This is why it's important for you to put that work order number on that invoice, because it may not be part of your process, but understand that you might be affecting someone downstream if you don't put that in there, right? So little things like that, I think, are super important. So, again, I think it's each organization is a little bit different, and the people in that organization are different, and it's up to us as data leaders to figure out how to best educate folks, build that curriculum, and understand what underlying technologies and platforms are going to support that education.
Yeah, I think that's another great point. I feel like just empowering teams and empowering individuals to keep continually learning. And again, I really love the fact that you are even now at this stage learning. And adding to your skill sets, even though you're a leader already. I feel like that's another great testament. I'd also love to get your perspective on where you see entities like, let's say, DataQG fitting in, because what we're trying to do, as you well know, Tony, is build a community where all the points that you mentioned, people can come to learn, collaborate, exchange information with each other. So I was wondering whether you could talk about where you see DataQG sort of fitting in into like learning tools, learning resources, and maybe within the broader context of community.
Yeah, and I'm going to start with your last word there. I think community is the key component here, right? With what you guys do. When I was speaking to my experience at DAMA, a big part of that experience for me and the growth of my career is that community aspect. It's knowing who's out there. We do a great job in our profession of sharing ideas, talking openly and freely about our pain points and what our challenges are, and kind of leaning on each other to help each other out. There's a bigger challenge at play here. I mean, the data represents people, right? And if it's not managed well, people can get hurt. Bad things can happen. So, most of the folks that I interact with on a daily basis are very principled. They're very passionate about what we do, and we're very willing to share. And that community and having places like DataQG and DAMA and all the other organizations that are out there, I think is that community and networking and that sharing of information is critical at every level, right? Because you said it earlier. As a data leader, you should never stop learning, right? Ever. Even after you retire, you should still be learning, right? So I mean, and it's, and that knowledge isn't always trickle down. There's not this hierarchy, right? I love listening to folks that are on the front lines doing the work and understanding the challenges, and and even people outside our community understanding the needs of folks that are in the business and folks that are more heavily focused on digital and modernization and digitalization and all those things. Everyone has something to contribute, right? So any organization that is providing the ability for that level of collaboration and information sharing is super important. The other piece tied to community is really I'm a big proponent of mentorship. We need young new data professionals. We need old new data professionals, right? People that are late career that want to do something new, that think they might have the savvy. Right? We need data professionals, period. And the career path isn't always straightforward, right? But this is not a computer science, management information systems only environment, right? People with humanities degrees and backgrounds in education, library science, things like, they all have something to add to our community and to our profession. And some of the best practitioners I've met are not your traditional technologists like I am. And so there's a tremendous amount of advantage to that. So I think, anything that you guys can do to continue to bring the community together, to foster that collaboration and that conversation, to give a little bit of relief for us that, when we've had a long day or a long week, we can go vent to some of our peers and maybe get a few hints and tips and tricks along the way. I think that's super important, because that's really, the secret sauce in my career has been all the really, really smart people, way smarter than me, with way more experience, that whenever I run into a challenge, I can pick up the phone and call, and they can say, this is how I did it. May or may not work for you, but why don't you give it a try? And 9 times out of 10, that gets me over the hump, and we're on our way. So you guys play a huge role as our profession is advancing and changing faster than any of us can reasonably keep up with on our own, right?
Appreciate that. I think that's the best endorsement I've heard to date about how a community of data governance professionals, leaders, practitioners can help each other, how it's helped you as well. So again, really appreciate the shout out, Tony.
Of course.
Yeah, we're almost at the end of our interview, but I had a couple of questions I was hoping to cover as well.
Of course.
So one question, just looking forward, I'd love to get your perspective on is, where do you see sort of the data governance market, whether it's tooling or vendors, going in 2022 and beyond?
So I think that the key trends that I'm seeing in the data governance, data management technology market really are, a lot of vendors are striving to create these end-to-end platforms that support data fabric, data mesh, those approaches. And they want to have all the capabilities that may have been point solutions in the past, all under one roof, all under one platform. Right? Great for business, right? But it can be somewhat of a challenge for us to fit things in with existing capabilities and make sure that we don't have redundant functionality and things like that. So, where we're really focused right now as a driver for the capabilities and technologies we're bringing in is our move to cloud, right? And when I talk to my peers, that's a big driver as well. We're all bringing in roughly the same stack. We all have roughly the same needs, and we're all looking to embed these data governance and data management capabilities into the architecture, right? As opposed to having these other things in processes. So we're very much taking an object-oriented approach to implementing these capabilities with the things that we need to do from a behavior perspective and a process perspective in the organization. So, I'm loving the trends, especially in my situation around automation, the leveraging of AI and ML, automated classification, anything that we can do to take those manual processes, right, and mitigate the need for humans to interact to do the things that we need to do within that data lifecycle. We're never going to get rid of it totally, right? And while data fabric, that idea tries to eliminate humans altogether, right? That's not what data is about. That's not what data governance is about. We're never going to fully get there, right? But there's some really innovative solutions out there that can allow organizations like us, who don't want to be big, who don't want to be bureaucratic, who actually want to be, look and feel smaller and nimble, get the work done at scale. And so all the vendors that I'm seeing and interacting with are really focusing on that end-to-end consistent experience, automation, and dehumanizing the process, right? Eliminating those human bottlenecks, and creating a common overall architecture for how we're going to do all the different things that we need to do.
Yeah, I think those are certainly some very interesting trends that we'll have to keep a close eye on as we move into the later half of this year and beyond. And that takes us actually almost to the end of our interview, Tony. One last question I'd love to cover is maybe some advice that you would have for other leaders, other practitioners who are trying to, let's say, start a data governance program from scratch.
Oh, wow. So I think that my first bit of advice I'd give to anyone who's challenged to start a data governance program is to really understand your organization, right? And by understanding your organization, I don't just mean what do you make? What do you sell? Right? I mean, who are the people in your organization? What is the culture of your organization? What are the strategic and short-term, long-term goals of the organization? Why is data important to the organization? Right? Because data governance is all about change management. We're trying to change how people interact with and manage and think about data in an organization. In a large enterprise, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of influence that you have to exert. And it's no small feat. So you really need to make sure that your folks at the top understand what you're doing. And in order to do that, you need to be able to speak to them about the organization and speak to the value of what you're trying to do in the context of what they want to do, right? We don't just manage data to manage data. We do data quality to improve business outcomes. We manage data to improve business outcomes. Everything we do is about business outcomes. So that's the story you got to tell. And that the second piece is you got to be a storyteller, right? You need to be able to paint the picture of what good looks like, what you're after, and how you're going to get there in a non-technical way. You got to speak to it like, you Saturday afternoon speak, meeting them where they are. The third piece of advice, I think, would be to, be resilient, right? This is not, this is not a job for someone with thin skin who, doesn't like to get knocked down every now and then and have to think about something a little bit differently and go back at it and get back out there. And so, I think that anyone has that ability. It's just a matter of, this is new. Even having been around for a couple of decades now, right? When you say data governance, that means different things to different people. And in some cases, it is different things in different organizations. So you have to be really clear and purpose-driven, right? And if you listen to me talk on a day-to-day basis at work, that's my big thing. Purpose. Why are we here, right? What are we trying to accomplish? And is everything that we're doing, everything I'm doing, everything my team is doing, everything that my stakeholders and my colleagues doing, advancing that purpose? And if not, we need to address that.
I think that's another very unique point I hadn't heard before about being resilient. And just sort of talking, the point you just mentioned where you want to level set or orient your team on where you fit in the grand scheme of things and what problems you're really trying to solve. So I wanted to say I really enjoyed our chat today, Tony. I think there's a lot of unique insights that I heard for the first time here, which I think really resonated and which will also resonate with our listeners. Before we wrap up, I was just wondering, like, for someone who's trying to reach out to you and maybe connect to maybe have like a follow-up conversation, where could they reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best. Twitter, I'm on as well. So that's typically the best way to get me. Also, I'm kind of out there in the world, so feel free to ping me anyway. Also, I'm on the DataQG Slack channel. So plenty of ways to get a hold of me.
Yeah, I wanted to say we really appreciate your strong partnership and your strong collaboration, Tony, ever since we launched, and really excited to continue collaborating with you.
Likewise, really excited about what you folks are doing, and our community is going to be better for it, for sure.
Excellent. Have a great day, Tony.
Thank you, bro.